Is that better?
Okay. Are we good? I hope
We're
good.
good. No one's on Zoom, right?
Nobody is
No
on Zoom
everyone's
currently. I have 0 attendees outside of this room.
Okay. So the next order of business is accepting the minutes. Last August 6th meeting. I wasn't there, so I recused myself from voting. But any thoughts, comments?
They're excellent minutes. We're missing an S.
We are missing an S somewhere in the minutes. According to
We have to find it.
Yeah. It begins with Bob. There's a sentence there with Bob talking about the bylaw. The bylaw needs with an S versus need. You see that?
Or just part of it.
Oh, is it here? Yeah.
Oh,
John
pointed out that the bylaw needs down here.
with an S.
Got it.
Saved.
That's the only thing I could find.
Thank heaven.
They were wonderful.
Were you an English teacher?
No, I was a teacher, but not an English teacher. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Do
You want to go around the room and do, first of all, did we do the whole who's here roll call?
we didn't do the roll call. Do we need to? Well,
I don't know. I believe so.
I've never-
Other than Janine, we're all here.
Okay. So
No, we're not.
Oh, Trip and Janine are not here.
Okay, let's do a roll call. I shout your name, say here. If you're not here, don't say anything. Kevin King here. John.
So long.
Here, thank you. Josh.
Here.
Abby. And Barbara.
Here.
Janine is not here. All right. Prentice Hall.
Here,
Preston Hall. Like I worked with Prentice Hall.
Yeah.
Tom Ryder here. Tripp is not here. John is here, and Deb Anderson.
Here.
And Joe Frontenac.
Did I say that, John? Joe. Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay. Good. So we're all here. We have a grammatical adjustment to the minutes. We have a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? I'm not voting.
Aye.
Okay, so it was
Approve the minutes.
motion by Joe, seconded by Sue and John. Sue,
It was a
Sue,
tie.
again,
You don't think so.
Sue, and then it was unanimously passed by everybody here and present, correct?
Correct.
I didn't vote, but so that's
Except for you because you were not here.
Oh, I wasn't here either.
so you
You
abstain.
abstained because you were not here. So all except Deb and Kevin, all others are yes to accept the minutes from last session, correct? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Next, we're reviewing the submitted stakeholder surveys.
Yes, if that's what you would like to do. So do you have the printouts?
I wrote,
And then the ones that fell.
Well, mine didn't get lost.
yeah, the attachment, is that a combination of everybody's or?
Yeah, that was a
Yes,
summary.
yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Of who would ever set them there.
But if you really
Oh.
figure out the key, you can
I didn't
follow
even have time to review
which ones
mine.
are attached.
You're doing the best you can.
Let me see.
We're a little bit disorganized.
Okay.
I apologize.
We should just start over.
Well,
My printer's not working, so.
I blame them.
This is what happens when I don't email very well.
There was some exceptional donuts that were given to us next door this morning. I can go see if there's any left. Did you see the donuts over there?
There was nothing there when I was there. Looking for something sweet.
It was early this morning.
Anyways, so we did have submissions of the stakeholder survey. I got things back from Tom. He had one other individual from his office called Cecil respond to it. I received Kevin's, which is on the summary as well. I had one from Joe. John's, I got Sue's, I got Josh's, I got Preston, no, I didn't get anything from him. Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. Oh,
Yep.
here they are.
So let me read copies, so.
So-
So these
Thank
include the additional,
Thank you.
All of
the
these.
additional ones that you just mentioned.
Yes, all of this is everybody I've received any information from as people regarding the survey response.
Fuel storage.
Oh, this is a much longer.
Yeah, so the one circulated, we're ditching.
The ones
initial, this is the
circulated.
latest.
This was attached to the,
Oh, yes, those were what I had up until that point.
okay,
This is
So
everything
there's
up until
over
4
the whole
PM
stuff.
today.
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I have uploaded that. to the-
That's on the attachment.
Yes.
Yeah,
The other handout is the recommended possible language to discuss that Josh provided so kindly, that we might want to include. So that's just a hard copy of what might be useful to you guys in our discussions.
Fuel storage,
Oh, I have,
is that what you're,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
that needs to be addressed?
So anyways, so first off,
Oh.
the survey results. So if everybody just pull out the survey results. at least.
is that this?
Thank you. That's
It
that
has a
one.
green.
Okay.
it has
Do
a
we have
green
any, it
box
has a
on top.
green heading to it. Does everybody have a copy or is there any additional?
We're
copies?
sharing one,
You're sharing one.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll
everybody
pull
has
it,
a
I'll
copy.
pull it up here.
That's okay. I got it. So let's, if you want to go through it, I just combined everybody together in the sections that you submitted information. So it's not specific. Okay.
So I have it printed up here as well.
Okay.
Yes, talk to him. Yeah, he's cute. He must be lonely.
So if you want to go through these,
He whistles and sings.
do you just want to read them or do you want to read them aloud?
It's up to you how you'd like to go through it. If you guys want to just look over what everybody's response was and then discuss, or would you like me to read each section for you? Totally up to you. There is nobody on attending the call. However, if they watch it later, it might be helpful for them to see it. I'm not
All
sure.
right, you want to read them?
I can do that. I'm going to also share my screen so that it is on the screen and other people can see. Okay, so the size would be great if it was a little bit bigger. All right, so the first section questioned what are the challenges you've experienced with stormwater management in regard to the current bylaw. Responses were homeowners in the vicinity of the new construction projects want the town to address the flooding perceived to have been caused primarily by the tear down of existing homes and subsequent replacement of those with much larger homes. Number two, or next is as a resident who is not part of town government or involved in development or construction, I have not been directly affected by the current stormwater bylaw. Next one.
wait, can I ask a question about the first bullet?
Yes.
For whoever wrote it?
Uh-huh.
Not all, my understanding is not all flooding is perceived to have been caused by tear downs, but does this address the flooding that is primarily addressed by tear? I just want to understand this.
I think I wrote it.
You were,
You
so
did.
do you mean that residents think that the only cause of flooding is tear downs? Or- Okay.
That's why I worded it to address flooding that is perceived to be caused.
Got it, okay,
Not that all the flooding is perceived to be caused by that.
okay, that's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, some of it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Third bullet is the existing stormwater bylaw only addresses water quality compliance with NIPD's and does not address water capacity issues. Next bullet, lack of clarity on who is and is not allowed to make private connections to the town's drain system. Next bullet, minimal post-construction enforcement. I don't know who made that comment. Next bullet, extra measures needing to be taken in regard to runoff towards abutting properties, including the town's MS4 and wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
Enforcement section 7.10 does not seem sufficiently robust to address issues resulting from non-compliance. Lack of public awareness on stormwater management compliance requirements. Minimal resources or educational materials available to stakeholders regarding stormwater management, best management practices, etc., including access to publicly available storm sewer map with locations of all outfalls. Contractors who perform landscaping and or property modifications are not required to be certified in proper stormwater management practices. Require a training certificate for contractors authorized to perform work in Needham, ? Lack of incentives for commercial and residential properties to alleviate town drainage during big storms by encouraging infrastructure that retains or detains stormwater on site. The ability to review submittals with consistency due the lack of clarity in the bylaws. I literally copied and pasted, so I did not edit for words at all. Regulations are needed to provide designers and applicants more guidance. No application processes. The permit is part of a building application and does not require a design. The DPW reviewer is only advisory to see if storage is provided when applicable on the plan. Bylaw makes assumptions that impervious areas less than 4,000 square feet only require 1-inch collection off roofs. Does not require certification showing that discharges post-construction has less volume and great discharges off property. Not clear what is required if the site is proposed to have greater than 4,000 square feet. Not clear what the requirements if the site already has greater than 4,000 square feet. What requirements then for small additions or other minimal increases in impervious areas. Next is there are no soil testing requirements. Areas found with poor soils or high groundwater prohibit installation of infiltration and is presumed the applicant only has to connect to town's drainage system or contribute to a fund which is non-existing. Many times is found there is high groundwater during construction, too late to make changes. Next is no fees set for connections into the town's drainage system or if mitigation cannot be installed. Regrading property, mass clearing of trees and or additional driveway construction does not trigger review of stormwater. No certifications of plans or reports required for impervious less than 4,000 square feet from an engineer. Operation and maintenance plans need to be filed and submitted to DPW yearly. I think we can set up a standardized system for residential systems, but it will take some coordination. No stormwater collection requirements for driveways, patios, or walkways. Many complaints about construction site flooding, mud during rain events. Mounding and earth moving to move water over the property lines. Destruction of trees / loss of canopy, complaints that large foundations affect groundwater flows. The why did the town allow this to be built statement, multiple flooded homeowners. Drains versus sewers and illegal discharge of sump pumps. And finally, misunderstanding about who quote unquote owns the water. The town's water flooded my side yard, for example. That is the first topic of challenges. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts or any specifics they would like to address? John?
Yeah, I have a thought. There's so much here, and there's a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is common.
Repeated, yes.
Repeating. So to me, it seems the next logical step is to try to boil this down to, there's probably 6 or 8, I would imagine, kind of major categories of the issues that we got to deal with. So that may be something that we want to do if we've got all of that we're going to get. And there's a lot of good stuff here that wasn't in the earlier one, which is sort of, adds more detail. So that'd be one thought, because we got to somehow get, from there and now do what Josh began to do in terms of the changes to solutions, which are directly related to one of the problems.
Yeah.
We can get the problems kind of collated down, then we can really I think, do a focused effort on what do you do about it.
I just have one comment on the bullet that says no stormwater collection requirements for driveways, patios, or walkways.
Yeah.
I would also add sports courts. Tennis court, basketball courts, pickleball courts.
Yeah.
Come
May I also ask Joe a question? Just a quick question.
Of course you can, yes.
on. Thank you.
Joe, you had mentioned last time that with these new houses, that there was an elevation maybe of 2 feet when they build the houses.
Oftentimes they.
Is that because of groundwater or is there, I'm just curious, I'm thinking of grading for the.
Yeah, I think it's partly because of groundwater. They're afraid they want to sell a house and then have people come back out of here like they flooding every 3 months. So
Okay, so they want to make sure they're high enough.
yeah, they want to go as high as they possibly can.
Okay.
And they also,
elevation, height of the house.
so that the height is based off of either the existing grade or the proposed grade, whichever is lower. So, but there's also another calculation they can do using this elevations of the street at the front of the house. That answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And they also want to make sure that they go down into the ground enough to stay out of the water table, but they also want to have a high enough basement that it can be finished so it will accommodate.
So it has to be 2-foot
Driving.
separation.
Right.
Oh, yeah, this
Right.
big thing is they're putting these golf simulators.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So a completed basement too is kind of
Yeah.
a reason
So-
behind this.
Is it 10 foot, 12 foot?
9 foot.
Okay.
Yeah, even if they don't build it out, they want it to be able to accommodate that, so it's something like that.
I guess I had
So
a
I'm
couple
thinking-
things to add.
I'm
too.
thinking on this, when we go through
Mhm.
this topic, if somebody wants to tell me if you can distill this section down to, like John said, 6 to 8 topics that you want to address. These are the issues that we're kind of bringing forth as part of the overall problem with what we have right now in town. Maybe having a list of the 8 that we focus on.
A second.
So should we do that as homework or here in this meeting?
No, I'm just saying here in this meeting, we should kind of work on what are the most important, because there's like 25 things listed here. So what are the 8 most either common or most important or most impactful changes that maybe aren't addressed in our stormwater bylaw that we would want to, or you would, I keep saying we, very loose term, that you would want to have addressed.
I mean, I kind
or
of
have
took a
recommended.
crack at it. You know,
John did, yes.
it's before the added stuff, but
Right.
it's perhaps.
It was a great
one-
start, yeah.
One place to start, or at least the concept of what I had in mind, if you
Right.
wanna
So this is what
take a
I'm,
look at
this is
that
what I'm
once we
suggesting.
finish the discussion on it.
So what I'm suggesting is after we go through this and we're good discussing this section, we'll move to the next section. We'll discuss all the stuff in there. And then we'll take a look at John's list that he started to put together and see if we can further hone that or make that doable. Does that sound good?
Because even though they're different questions, some of what's in the next question is still maybe similar to what's in.
Exactly.
Correct.
No, I think this consensus will gel.
Okay.
Well, you're right, some of these repeat themselves. We're all.
Right, Deb, you had comments on that section, first section?
So I brought up before, I think, the definitions need more clarification, in the bylaw. As far as the areas found with poor soil or high groundwater prohibit installation of infiltration, and they can only add it to the town's drain system. We sometimes require them to look at rain gardens as an alternative if they don't have the groundwater separation to put in a dry well or something like that.
Okay, so this is like in the bylaw though, so
mhm.
To Kim's point though, I'm thinking that some of these, even though there's a lot of items that we have, like
Yep.
that could go in regulations, so like
Okay.
bylaw regulations. Versus, I mean, because a lot of those items would be great to have guidance.
Like
Yeah, I'm
additional
thinking-
measures that are
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
around the.
I'm thinking the list
infiltration.
that we come up with or go with John's is actually gonna be a dual list. So one that is for bylaw recommended changes and potential regulation inclusion.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and I am not heating.
Okay.
I'm just.
That's all I
on
had.
the wall.
You're being recorded.
Mhm.
I'm a figment of everybody's imagination. Okay, all right,
I
so,
have one more.
sure,
Are you still
section one.
collecting comments? on
Yep, from
it?
section one, yep.
One here triggered something I've been meaning to ask. The one about the destruction of trees, loss of canopy. Since the town just very recently, the select board approved the climate action plan. Is there some linkage that needs to be made in the stormwater bylaw that links? I mean, there's obviously all sorts of connect points. You know,
I don't
when you
think
start to look at the approved plan.
I don't think it should link to it. However, it cannot interfere, impede, or in any way prohibit anything in the climate action plan either. So it's not necessarily linked to it, but when making recommendations for things to change, we need to be aware of what climate action things are happening. And if they're going to mandate something in climate action, we can't have a bylaw that also says the complete opposite to it.
Climate
that
action
you would.
won't, I don't think they're gonna pursue, that's not where it's gonna come from. It'll come from the tree working group.
Right.
Right. Tree
Yeah.
committee.
I was gonna say, I believe
Yeah.
that we are looking at a tree
Bylaw.
work of.
That's
Which
tomorrow
will be
night.
about in October. Right.
How do you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But there are
tomorrow.
other things like there are stormwater references in the climate action plan.
Yes.
There's discussion about infrastructure, resilient infrastructure that loops over to what we're doing here. So it's more of a question.
Yeah, it just needs
And
to
I'm
be
not
that-
looking for there to be something written in that says they're related, but just in terms of.
I would think anything they would do would have to at least mirror what we have in the bylaw. If that makes sense.
Does this, being an ordinance, does this have priority over a?
I want to hear what, yeah.
Well, I just want to comment that because I am on the tree committee and we actually had a partial meeting with Katie today, Katie King. The tree committee is interested in anything the stormwater bylaw committee has to say about trees and
Yeah.
how that may affect. So, and that's also, we also noted that this is also going to tie into trees and stormwater. It's also going to tie into the large house review. So all three of it is kind of interconnected.
Yeah. They could be referenced anyway. I mean,
I guess that's something down the road perhaps to just.
So I think we have to be mindful that there's three tracks going on. I wonder if legally this stormwater what we're doing has more teeth. Legally, we'd rather have basically more authority than what a tree committee might come up with.
Well, let me stop and ask you this. Is the tree committee, what is the goal of the tree committee?
Don't quite know yet. So there's public trees and there's private trees. Most people have the consensus that there's not much we can do with private trees, depending on how far the town wants to go with it. Public trees, we can certainly, protect town property. But to Kevin's point, we have a stormwater bylaw. We don't have a tree bylaw right now. So stormwater bylaw.
So we put trees as part of stormwater. Legally, I think that's more durable.
I don't think you would have trees in your stormwater bylaw. I think you would refer to the tree bylaw because either one of those can change at any time. So you want it to be as malleable as possible for either one of them, I would think.
Okay.
Again, if you think something's going to change in the future, say whatever trees or whatever type of cover we've decided is great now, 10 years from now, because we get ridiculous storms or we don't get any storms if we now are planting palm trees. I don't know. It might change, but if we have it written into multiple laws that way, you have to change multiple laws. To me, you would refer to best practices based on the tree guidance, the tree, I don't know, Bible. I don't know what you want, whatever you call it, the tree ordinance.
Maybe we'll ask town council. So,
I would bring that up to the select board, yeah, and find out what the council and find out how you could possibly, because that's to me, that's what I'm talking about when I say link things.
Yeah.
You want to refer to something that would have the teeth or the weight behind it, and you want to be able to have it like in our bylaw, but not so specific.
Yeah.
That we're stuck to that, and then you have to change other ones, or
Right.
and then which ones you change first and which ones.
You can add, as part of the interests of the bylaw, is a tree canopy.
Yeah.
Without pushing.
Without giving the specifics.
Yeah, and then in the regulation, you can say something, and then that can always be adjusted.
Right, to me, a bylaw would be must maintain adequate tree canopy. And then in the regulations, you'd say must be applicable to any tree
or
ordinance
after
or whatever.
construction is developed, required to plant a tree on the private property.
That's my question, whether that should be included in the stormwater.
Because this is the only time we're gonna get in, like a tree bylaw probably couldn't say that. But
Yeah.
a stormwater construction could say, as conditions of the permit, we need you to start to at least do some modest effort to create a future canopy.
You could probably
I
put
agree.
something in, I mean, you know, in replacement or tree replacement or something like that. But it's got to be pretty general, like the specifics of what to replace, how much to replace, the size, and all that other stuff.
Conservation Commission has it all written out.
Right.
I mean, I appreciate the difficulty in saying, well, you can't cut down, because that might be difficult, but at least it's like, well, you can sit down, you're gonna put something back.
I agree. I think in relation to stormwater runoff, I think it's important with new construction, when they take away all the trees, you just can't do that and not replace it with, I don't know, we have 2 to 1 trees, we have 4 shrubs to 1 tree, we have the choice. And depending on the diameter of the tree. So I think it will, if all the trees go with a construction site, stormwater is going to be terribly affected.
Yeah, time and time again, meeting with all these 22 neighborhood meetings we did. Some people say, you know, in the Broad Meadow area, we're getting it from Thornton Road, and you look at Thornton, it's like northern Scotland. I mean, it's fall, and there are no trees. Like, well,
Yeah.
So that's what people in the neighborhood are saying. So,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of residents are really raising voices with the trees that are going down in the construction.
Yeah. I mean, you're still not going to grab all the ones, like if I'm on a private and I don't have any construction going, it's not new construction.
Right.
And they take it down.
I appreciate that.
But, you know, you can put something in. I would
Maybe
encourage you to put stuff in there.
think about the purpose also. So like, you know, there's a purpose statement in the bylaw. And that may be a place where we can tie it all together.
Exactly.
What is the schedule for the tree committee work? We've got a couple of meetings planned, two or three more meetings planned before we make some recommendations. So it'll kind of run parallel with what we're doing. I think this group will run a lot longer.
Then what are you talking about?
The tree bylaw.
Yeah.
See, I wasn't at the first meeting, so I don't.
Okay. You know,
I don't know
so
what
one of the
happened.
things that came up, you know, we talked about, rather than regulations, we're talking about incentives. So Katie's reaching out to a group of frequent flyer contractors to get some feedback from them to see what would incentivize them to keep trees. Because it's impossible to say in a tree bylaw, okay, you can't cut down the trees on your property, and be able to enforce it. That's the problem. You could say it, but then we have to have 30 people to the forestry department to enforce it.
And then Wellesley does have that, Wellesley's tree bylaw, I know has incentives. I remember reading it pre-pandemic, remember we were given it.
Oh, yeah.
It does have
So you made
incentives
a
for.
collection of.
I think poor Ed is going to be ultra busy on his off hours driving around
I'm
town.
not all of that.
Yeah.
Speaking of time frame of committees and things, has the
We haven't done
select,
anything about
oh, okay, the membership of
Oh, yeah,
this
we
group
authorized, yeah.
reauthorized?
Yeah, this month.
Oh, okay, okay. I just wanted to follow.
Oh, yeah,
up
you're
on
all
that.
on.
You're stuck.
Just like.
Alrighty, so section 1, are we all comfortable with any discussions or conversations that we want to have around things that were brought up in section 1? Going once, going twice.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So the section 1, basically what we're gonna do after we finish this is to find about 8 impactful stormwater.
Yeah, I mean, you can have 5, 8, whatever you,
okay,
whatever the number
okay,
you guys are.
Okay.
I think it'd be nice to be clear on this, could go in the bylaw, I mean, part of the regulation, but I think they're all great. Just, I don't think they're all going in the bylaw, right?
They're too
Okay.
specific.
Okay,
By the
yeah,
way, it's like what
Yeah.
clear that this committee is recommending bylaw and regulations, and right now it's only bylaw.
Yes.
okay.
I mean, I think it'll help sort of in the public education piece down the road, or when Kevin is at the board meeting trying to explain it. You know, you're not gonna go through 45 items.
Right.
But if it can be sort of grouped that these are the major areas of concern that the committee has identified, and here are the actions that are gonna be taken to address them, that will make for a good story.
I think I just heard you volunteer to make a lovely, glossy brochure discussing everything stormwater.
That's true.
Isn't that what I heard?
I'm
I'm not marketing. I don't.
How you
I'm
can
not
read
a
between the
marketer.
lines
I
like
know.
that.
I heard it. I heard
just
it
an
loud as
engineer.
day. Loud as day. I heard it. Okay, so second question on the survey was, what are the top 3 topics you feel a stormwater bylaw needs to include or address? Okay. One, I kept these grouped together because they kind of seemed like they related to each other together, so I kept them grouped together. So the first 3 was limit additional flow into the town system, require more water to be kept on site, and limit regarding of
Regrading.
Thank you. Regrading of lots so as not to shed more water onto adjacent properties or public way. Next one was more focus on flooding mitigation, incentives for maintenance of stormwater management facilities, more detail on MS4 compliance, better linkage between measures implemented and water quality improvement. Include this in the regulation, not the ordinance. Next one was pre-construction, increase baseline recharge requirement above existing 1 inch to address water capacity concerns in addition to the 1 inch required by NIPDES. Pre-construction, provisions for additional on-premises recharge requirement above the revised baseline when in proximity to conservation resources or downhill abutters. And post-construction, authorization for the town's continued monitoring and enforcement of the efficacy of infiltration infrastructure. That was a lot of big words.
That really was. You did well.
Someone did well on this.
Yeah.
Josh.
Let me tell you, I'm glad I read to my kids.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
I feel it was practice. The only thing I now need is to put a voice to all the different sections. Can I just comment on one piece of that too? The pre-construction increased baseline recharge above 1 inch with the 1 inch requirements. I was thinking the other day, don't ask me why at 3 o'clock in the morning I wake up and to do whatever. And yeah, and I think stormwater, because that's
the rain was beating on the roof, that's why.
Yeah, nothing was happening. The house was silent. It's like a mouse in the house. Nobody heard, nobody was making a peep, and all I could think of was stormwater. But my thought is possibly thinking about doing something or wording something so that we're not saying specific inches in terms of how much to go over. So my thought is what it might, sad as it is, my dream basically was that EPA came out and said, you now need to capture 3 inches, and we had to change all this stuff. So if we just have like we're talking about like the interest rates, what the prime rate is. So this is the prime stormwater rate, and you have to be X above the prime stormwater, whatever it is. Just as a thought. I don't know why it came to my head.
And this was an actual dream, right?
It was actually.
All right, some needs occasion.
Okay.
I dream about the EPA a lot.
All right, so it's basically a benchmark, right? Or
Yeah, something like that. Like I'm all for the, increasing the amounts, but my concern is because the EPA can change it over time, and they're due to come out with a new one, and they can come out with one every 5 years. They can even do it in between if they really wanted to.
oh, so we could tie it to the EPA standard and up plus
That's my thought.
to exceed EPA standards by.
Yes.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know, well, that's the problem, so I'm trying not to be, like, people want specifics of, like, in construction, you guys would like to have, I would specifically need to address how much do I need to get to a formula, I need to get to 1 inch. That's fine for now, but what happens if it changes to 2.5 inches, and then we're refiguring, ours is already at 2, which is great, but now we're a 1/2 inch below what the EPA says.
Good dream.
It didn't really seem like it at the time.
That's not you. People never remember you.
I actually wrote it down. I have a notebook next to my bed.
No.
Write it down, otherwise I forget about it.
Maybe you'll have the sequel.
Your
tonight.
husband is a lucky man.
Yeah, he doesn't think so. He sleeps through the whole thing. That's great. He has a sleeping machine, so he doesn't hear.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking, again, I was watching a lot about the interest rates and the feds and all this other stuff. And then apparently I was also thinking about the EPA, and I was thinking, oh, why don't we do something like that where you have like a prime plus whatever is what your interest rate is, or what your stormwater rate is. Okay. Okay, back to the list. Sorry for the
I have a
slight
question.
interlude. Yes.
I just had a thought.
Yes.
May mean nothing. What about having different parts of town having different requirements for infiltration based on
Basins.
well, just based on areas that flood a lot and such? What if there were different requirements for different sections?
You would have, I would think that would be something that would be tied to zoning. And you would be changing zoning stuff. Because how else can you determine that?
I know that's why it was just a thought. It was just random, but I'm like, if we have different stormwater situations in different areas of town, what about requiring different amounts based on sections?
We've looked at that in a different capacity, like in a board health aspect, stuff like that, having certain areas of town that more frequent septic failures they have certain requirements.
Yeah.
But you'd have to split it into like really defined basins and then plug in the regulation. Right.
Yes, you have regulations you could really.
Just wondering. I have no idea if that makes sense at all.
No, I had a similar thought, because I mean, could you define it in terms of like elevation of a particular parcel compared to the elevation of surrounding parcels, or distance from?
What happens if somebody on a surrounding
conservation
parcel
area.
changes their elevation though?
Or you talk about
Well, then you'd have to recalculate it.
Right, but you've already built it or put in.
Oh, but it would be triggered at the construction.
Oh.
By construction. So I guess if a neighbor changes their elevation, like, I guess this wouldn't directly be triggered, but if you do a construction, then.
like here we go. Like if you're in a lower area, storage, you need to get the water out. Storage is not going to be helpful if people uphill or flooding you up. So people uphill should be doing more storage. And people downhill should be getting the water out.
Unless there's wetlands that we're trying to keep healthy,
for flood areas, right.
by that they need that water. That
Right.
You don't want to take that water away from that area.
Right. So it would have to be looked at like DeFazio areas. Actually, we could do some storage over there, but you also need to open that area up and allow for water to, take its natural course. Less impervious.
And that wouldn't need zoning. Like, I don't think that would have to tie.
I'm not saying you need to do anything with zoning. I'm just saying it would be something to like a zoning thing. Like how else would you identify where that house lives? I mean, unless you require that everybody to have a soil test every time they do construction to determine how much drainage they actually have. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you have the soils maps
Right.
that give you a general idea of areas.
You know what's interesting is what areas of Needham have been filled in, wetland areas of Needham have been filled in.
Oh my God.
Actually, Dave
did that
Herrera,
overlay.
I just looked at his map yesterday.
Oh, yeah. And it was behind Dunkin' Donuts too. Area
Well,
was filled in
Linden
with it.
Chambers was all wetland.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
So food for thought, definitely.
Yeah, just out there. I'm certainly not an engineer. I know these things.
Close.
I am very close. My father is an engineer.
I know.
To the blood.
Mine.
An unrelated question.
Mhm.
About what is the current rule about connecting to the existing drainage system?
So,
Drainage or sewer?
Drainage.
yeah, drain,
Drainage.
so, some pumps can connect to, the drain line, they would need to pull a street permit, pull a drain permit, sign a waiver. They could connect, some pump.
What about any other?
French drains and those kind of things.
Yes, underground stuff, but, not supposed to do roof drains, but however, I know people have,
So there's,
combined it.
so anybody in any part of the watershed.
Yeah,
We don't
Has
allow it in our jurisdiction. French drains,
What do you mean your jurisdiction?
And
in
conservation.
conservation
Okay.
in our.
Sometimes somebody needs to explain to me.
Oh, I'm
There's
sorry.
Overlapping.
Yeah,
I
we
know
have a
that's one
lot of
the comments.
wetlands
It's
and
in-
obviously the
that's-
river, so we do have a good amount
Yeah.
of jurisdiction in the town, so.
When you say you don't allow it, you mean, you can't connect to the drain system if you're in proximity to wetlands?
What is regulation of that?
So, yeah, we have it in our orders that they can't, connect to the town storm drain unless it's, a certain special circumstance.
Okay.
So if
I
the
gotta go back on
construction
that
is
one.
within the buffer zone of a wetland, they're within 200 feet of the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
but
So-
going to the street is a, you're talking about a direct discharge to like.
Right.
To the stream. Whereas a connection to the town's, into the street.
well, going back to us wanting to remove the water that's needed for the wetland. We don't want them pumping it into the town storm drain.
Okay, yeah.
So we're trying to keep as much water on the property, as there was before, whatever this construction is. So we try to keep people from pumping it into the town system, because then it just goes away, and obviously that will have an effect on the wetlands.
Is that the town's only limitation for that, really? With connecting to the town
Yeah,
stormwater system?
it would be the conservation.
Isn't it like the size, whether the pipe can handle additional,
Yeah.
because we have some undersized pipes, right, that I'm sure you
Yeah,
don't want
so-
people to hook into.
Yeah, so it doesn't, there's really no guidance other than they're allowed to connect, they gotta sign the waiver. And realize it could back up, so there needs to be some sort of siphon break. So there's been talk about, like, first of all, getting the basements out of the groundwater. And if like existing houses need to connect, they should have some of the water on their property, so create a dry well, a siphon break, and then anything that overflows can go into the system. So that's the route we're heading towards, but that's not the past practice. Past practice is disconnect.
Are you able to have leverage to get the builder to participate in the financing to enlarge in a larger line?
Yeah, a lot of the times, this is coming after the fact, there's a few years down the road, where now they're finding that, we get some water in the basement, or I had the sump pump that was discharging in the street all along, I wanna do the right thing. That's where a lot of it's coming from.
So the builder's long gone by then.
Yeah, Bill is long gone, but there are a few builders that are coming in for connections as well, and we've been telling them lately. You can do the connection, but we want to see something on the property first, and then you can overflow, which is, there's no guidance or regulations, so this is kind of like,
Yeah.
we're trying to nip this as much as we can.
How many of those connections actually go into the sanitary sewer system?
We'll have to find out. That's, so we are, that's part of our II work that we're gonna be doing next year. It's gonna come up as capital for
Infiltration.
to do a study on
Info, yeah.
inflow.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be talking about something completely different, and forgive me if I am, but in my annual report, I state every single year that we did a whole one through town or whatever, saying we removed all illicit connections. I presumed that meant all the sewer connections, anything that was connected in illegally, essentially.
Into the pipe, right?
Into
Or,
the pipe.
or
So
into
we
the
don't
drain.
have any as far as I'm aware, correct?
Right, at the street.
Correct.
So we're talking about inside the house, so.
A sump pump connect to a slop sink.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's different, okay.
I just want
Just want to know what I'm trying to get for a second.
just I just think it's important to point out that some of these houses that we went to, that were
Right.
purchased and, builders no longer involved, some of these folks have put in 2, 3, and even 4 sump pumps to control the water,
Gee.
just so,
Mm.
and that's the kind of
So
extreme.
there can be that many connections into the town.
Well, no, I mean, the sump pumps, they go to different places. A lot of them just discharge right out to the yard. Some of them will tie into the tank underground and then tie into the.
Wow.
to the-
Right, Roswell Road, we have a resident who's pumping right into the drain, but when that thing is at full capacity, there's no place for the water to go. So,
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it does.
And that's why, clarifying in this ordinance when and how you can connect to the town system is a complicated thing.
Yeah, I think the
don't know how
bylaw
heck
would
we're
say
gonna-
like it can be allowed, however, it would need to fall under the regulations, and in the regulations, you would have like specific
Yeah. Sounds like it.
scenarios as to
Yeah,
when that would be
yeah.
applicable. Oh, no, and only those scenarios. Anything else is up. So sorry.
So how
Too bad
does it
so sad.
relate to, so if conservation, and it probably will have, we're doing our regulations, going through that right now.
My mind's boggled.
Yeah, so if we have stricter requirements, how is that kind of identified in
I
the,
think any regulation or bylaw that we have that potentially would affect yours is that it would have a statement similar to what we have in other sections where it says something to the effect of, this is what we're requiring unless more stringent rules are in place by any other
okay, so there is
Permitting
a,
authority.
permitting authority or something like that. So if there's somebody
Okay.
who supersedes that, meaning they're in a conservation
Mhm.
wetland area, that's a protected area, that automatically means that ours would be the minimum, but if yours is more, then they would go by whatever the more is, not by what
Okay.
ours is.
all right,
So they
because
can say,
that's the pushback we've been having.
Yeah, so
It
to me,
is-
if a resident had an issue, they say,
We're
well,
more strict, but,
And that's what you do, you. Right.
so,
yeah, you're more strict, but they're also in a wetland, they're in a protected area, they're not in just
mm-hmm,
a general location in town.
mm-hmm.
If you weren't in a protected wetland area, you wouldn't have to be under more strict authority.
Right,
And to make it very clear which permitting authority it would be
right,
to.
because we have had recently, that the building department signed off that stormwater wasn't required for this build. And then we did require it. And then there was well, no, they're the issuing authority, the building department for the building permit. So how can you guys overstep that kind of thing? So,
because the building department has, that's why conservation has a step in a building department review. So when it comes in, when the
Mhm.
permit comes in, the conservation review should say, yes, this is okay to go, or no, you need to have conservation involved.
mhm,
And that's
Which
where
we
it should
do
stop
do.
before the permit gets issued.
yeah,
So we're not saying, when we put the permit together and the building department, the only thing that triggers them having to have stormwater managed on it is if they're increasing the footprint by 25% or more, or whatever the.
well,
the
we've
number
had
is.
a few instances lately where builders have taken the existing house down to the foundation.
Mhm.
And then have said, because of building saying that
It's an
they don't
existing
require,
foundation.
that they don't require it,
They don't.
and the Conservation Commission, our regulations have definitions of that does trigger it.
Mhm.
So there's kind of well, who's right and how can you overstep
In this
them?
particular
And-
case, there was no increase in the footprint.
Right, it was on the
Yeah.
existing foundation.
Right, but ours kind of calls a rebuild and, you know,
We might have to change the calculation on the building permits of how it comes out as what we
There's a
did or
lot
not.
of changes. I have a
Oh, I
whole
heard.
list of changes.
I got the email today, thank you. Please understand I'm Nikki's permitting manual report.
we know what you're gonna
until the
dream
end of
about
September.
tonight.
No, I will not start dreaming about that until after October, the middle of October.
I'm glad that you have that much control over your dreams.
I don't, but.
It sounds like good dreams overall. though.
Yeah, really. All right, thank
we'll go
you.
with that. Okay.
for that.
All right, I'm sorry, I turned off my share screen so that people at home or viewing this otherwise could see who was speaking. Okay, so back to the document. I ended at sufficient infiltration within site proper, significant measures or controls to prevent runoff into abutting properties, including MS4 and resource areas, including grading issues, correcting or preventing illicit connections and discharges to the MS4, and enforcement. Next set was prohibited activities, connections, discharges, etc., and actions that are permitted with as much specificity as possible. Enforcement actions, including penalty or fine structure. Procedures for long-term operation and maintenance of BMPs. The next one had some wants of plot plan requirements, projects requiring stormwater mitigation with less than 3,500 square feet of impervious area. The plot or plan site plan is to show more detailed grading, spot grades at gutter line, at drive, back of sidewalk, street line, grades alongside and rear lot lines if proposed grading is within 10 feet of the lot line. Existing utilities and grading within the street for full length of frontage and full width of road layout. Existing and proposed contours, grades at building corners and garage floor grade. I will tell you right now, this is written by an engineer because I do not understand a word he just said, but that's okay. Minimum, I know you guys do, and the rest of us got completely lost.
Reminds me of my father would help me with my homework.
Oh God,
and he was an engineer, and I just end up in tears.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was ever so thankful for the index at the back of the thing that gave you the answers for like.
Ask your father for help.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Minimum 20 scale drawing, provide proposed impervious area on plan. Note on plan stating that there is no increase in runoff onto abutting properties. Plan signed and stamped by a professional engineer. Street trees are to be shown, all existing and proposed utilities shown, projects with proposed impervious area greater than 3,500 square feet require pre and post development drainage calculations. Plan signed and stamped by a civil engineer. Note on a plan stating that there is no increase in runoff onto abutting properties, detailed BMPs, drainage calculations submitted with plans. I'm going to say, I'm going to say that entire section is all well and good to be included, but can't be done as one thing.
This is bylaw done.
It's a paragraph for the regulation.
Also,
yes, but quite possibly.
Even that has to be broken up into.
Yeah.
So the question, is any of this currently done like voluntarily by any builders?
No.
Bits and pieces
Some
of
of
it?
the
No.
street permit, some of
Altogether.
the spot grades and, but, we are requiring that they put the table on as far as the impervious area to certify that it's under 4,000. If it's above 4,000, then they need to do special requirements, which is unknown really, other than that to certify that they're not flooding their neighbor. But
so is that just roof runoff, or is it driveway and other impervious?
Well, they collect just from the roof, but it's supposed to include the driveways, the impervious area.
Okay.
So we have like driveways that are right up against the property line and higher grade than the neighbor. So, and then they have a turn-in garage, so like that water's going that way,
Right.
so.
So right now, does anyone calculate those pre and post runoff measures?
We've been asking them to do it only if it's above 4,000 square feet, because that seems like it's a trigger for that type of certification. But if it's under 4,000, it's presumed that it's okay. According to the bylaw.
Currently.
And based on the upkeep requirements, it doesn't address capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pre and post, right.
Wow.
Okay,
And the collection's only from the roof too, so it's only has to be from the roof. We have had engineers provide it for other areas.
So Neptune only requires roof runoff.
Our bylaw only requires roof.
Because we've been lately, when people are building new houses, we've been having them put like a crushed stone trench drain alongside their driveway. Dave's really been
Or
promoting that.
Yeah, and it would all have rushed into the town.
Yeah.
They're South Street. Remember they've all rushed into South Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
okay, so second to that dissertation, clarify design criteria and clarify inspectional criteria. Next set is provide design that mitigates and treats stormwater, site evaluation and design certification by a civil engineer, provide an application process for the design and construction inspection similar to a building card, and follow up operations and maintenance requirements. And lastly, building code needs to have a lower threshold to trigger the review. Local topography, norms from neighbors, and water table have to inform design and engineering. No sunken garages, no mounding. Preservation of existing trees, or at least the post-construction replanting of trees.
Can I ask, a sunken garage, is that a garage below grade?
Yeah.
Do you want some of my warm diet Pepsi from this morning?
Oh, thanks. I'm all set.
All right.
Do
Thank you, Deb.
we want any more discussion on the second section, or am I moving on to the third? Going once? Going twice. So, okay, third section. So the third question actually had three parts to it. So what is your overall opinion of the bylaw in terms of, and the three categories was clarity, efficacy, and purpose. All very vastly different. So the first one, for clarity, the issues were bylaw is not well organized and or user-friendly, needs considerable reorganization and a clear separation between the bylaw and the more detailed regulation. Definitions could be clearer, such as what qualifies as permeable versus impermeable. The stormwater management and erosion control section 7.7 could also be organized more clearly to separate out water quality requirements, NIPDs, and water capacity requirements. Expand definition section to improve clarity. Not very good. Mixed opinion. It seems to be clear to require some mitigation for impervious areas, but also to minimize the design and follow-up requirements for permitting purpose. So clarity. Thoughts, comments?
Yeah, it's a difficult document to use.
Yes.
It's choppy.
I don't know how many times I've read it and had to reread it and reread it.
Yeah, and when you're trying to apply it to a specific case, you start here and you think you get it, but then you get to here and you, oh my God, now I gotta go back. And it's a lot of this in trying to apply it. So it just needs,
This makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Seeing it for the first time.
Oh.
when we started this committee.
Yeah.
I've gone through that same evolution.
yeah, and you know, because we deal with multiple things, you know, if we were just dealing with stormwater bylaw, we'd have it down pat. But, you know, we're going from energy to structural to, you know, all zoning, other things, and then you come back to the bylaw, you know, what does it say? It's just,
if you look at other town bylaws, it is so much more clear. Just as you read through it.
That's not to
Not
say they don't have the
enjoyable.
same issues of trying to figure out how to apply each thing to
No,
each
right.
scenario, so.
but it reads in a pattern that
Yeah.
you can figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
I
if
wasn't
it
here
were
when you
clear, it would
said
also
that
be
last
better
And we
for
can't just copy and paste.
the you know, the contractors.
Another
and
tab.
homeowners.
We could-
We can.
So we need
You
an
have to-
editor. A good editor.
Yeah.
Appears to be
Get a change order.
Quick, yeah, quick at chunk.
There we go. Unless we
We could
get
take a
permission
lot
from
of
them to
the
copy it.
other towns' bylaws and kind of fit it in
But there's a lot of room for improvement on
those.
just that organizational clarity piece.
Yeah. A lot of it just
Maybe a
moves
flow
around.
chart.
Yeah. It's a-
I love flow charts.
Do you like
That
flow
would-
charts?
Yeah,
Give me
that
a
was
flow
my,
chart.
I know, I know.
If this is
that-
your
that would be a
condition,
very
go
good
here.
Public education.
If this fits your criteria, go
Yeah,
here.
that's a good point, right?
Yeah.
there.
It's
What?
an easy thing to understand with a flow chart. I think I was mentioning to John
We
too.
need
You used to
do a
flow-
lot of.
You could
public
do that.
education.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of public. education.
But for
Course
public,
plays
for
on.
education,
Sure.
we've got to see where it starts and where it's, you know, where it's all come from and
We need
what,
to make a
you know,
stormwater
the
book
the
that they
ending
used to
point
have for
or
the
the,
kids, like if you pick
you know, the
this,
final.
this is what happens next
purpose.
in the story. If you pick
Right.
this, this
Yeah,
is what
yeah.
happens.
Choose your own
next in the
adventure.
story. Yes, choose your own adventure, exactly. I was just aging myself on that one.
Read those all the time.
Yeah, that's when I was little, it was like a big thing. You could pick a
What
different
are we
story. every
talking
time.
about?
Which towns
So
are you
used to have a
impressed with?
story.
With the bylaw, like Wellesley's bylaw?
I like the, Wellesley,
Oh,
I haven't really
It's like
seen too
having
much of
different movie
Wellesley
endings.
stuff. You know, Wellesley doesn't get triggered too often, I believe.
Oh.
Only if you go through a large house or conservation. I don't see like day-to-day triggers. So I'm not sure how they're handling that. Um,
Newton seems to have a pretty strict,
Yeah, I'm gonna put my thumbs down and so.
yeah, me too.
But you like native,
I like it.
you like native?
Can't imagine my question.
What's what I haven't seen in a while, I have it actually, so. Over there.
Josh, next.
So maybe it's for Joe or Tom, I'm not sure. So when I go through Newton or Boston, the place in Boston, new constructions at the foot of the driveway always seem to have like the
Trench
drain. Yeah,
Yeah.
trench.
Yeah.
Is that a requirement
Yeah,
or is that
I've
a
seen that.
design
It's
choice?
required.
It is, okay.
Hmm.
Yep.
And that feeds into this town's drain system?
No, then the designer needs to put in a sediment tank and then an infiltration.
Is that below the driveway or somewhere else?
Yeah, so you need to do soil testing and then make sure that you can have a 2-foot separation of the groundwater from the bottom and then all the driveways drainage supposed to go there. Okay.
Have you seen them in Needham,
I have not.
but Newton?
Newton and parts of Boston.
Interesting.
Efficacy. The bylaw does not directly address measures to mitigate flooding. On the plus side, it seems the bylaw has been sufficient to meet some pretty rigorous requirements in the MS4 permit. But the bylaw and draft regulation have created some confusion for builders and homeowners. Also, the bylaw has not provided adequate enforcement authority for the town to prevent or address flooding situations.
That's under clarity.
Yeah, it's a repeated thing, so I think that's
Okay.
coming up again and again, which is doing it and good to know.
Mhm.
Having different authorities for the day-to-day administration, 7.3.2, and for issuing permits in 7.3.3, appears to cause public confusion and differences in interpretation among the various authorities.
Mhm.
True that.
Yeah.
That's not my comment, but I would like to get a primer from somebody on exactly these different authorities. I'm kind of listening to the
Mhm.
conservation piece.
I think
and
that's frequently when it happens, like conservation says they have to do something, but building says they don't have to, or
Yeah.
vice versa, or whatever. Conservation never say no,
Well,
but
Well,
I wanna
it
give-
just says like the issuing authority,
right.
but when several different authorities are issuing
Yeah.
things, it gets
But you
confusing.
could also have, a planning board decision or a zoning board decision that has certain requirements for drainage in it.
Oh.
One of the issues is that the the bylaw seems to assume that the planning board or the zoning board have a enforcement capacity when they do not.
Mm.
And the enforcement capacity really is with the building department.
So you've named 4 different groups that are have a stake or say in these decisions.
Yes.
And they don't always jive.
Right.
And they don't know what.
Jive.
Is that typical of other jurisdictions? Is this
In some
medium
cases,
special?
it feels to constantly trying to hit the planning board to just go by, I forget which regulation we're talking about, but just, why don't you just reference this? Actually, it was hours of construction. We have a bylaw that extended hours of construction, but the planning board would always issue a decision that, you know, went outside of those hours. Why do we even have this?
Mm.
So, but that's how, you know, these boards are elected, appointed there.
But do we have all the stakeholders at this table to help
No,
make a good? Who's missing?
No.
but in New England, yeah, local government is diffused and, you know, fractured, deliberate.
Yeah.
We like it that way.
I grew up in New Hampshire, so I know. But,
Just as somebody who didn't work in municipal before, everything in municipal is very siloed. You guys like work in your own little world and everybody does the same thing in the same way and it's different department, but comes out to a different solution, like a different process or a different whatever.
Versus state.
No, I'm talking like just town in general. And I'm saying this also seeing, because my husband works for another town, so seeing what he also goes through for documentation stuff, like I don't understand why there's not like standard something you start with, and you can change from there based on whatever your department needs or division needs, but there's no like standard something
Well,
to
they
start
are
with.
working on that up in town hall, having
Well,
standards
that's-
for many things.
Yeah, but that's a rebranding. I'm talking like standard, like like how you would start to do something. Like what is the process of creating a procedure? Like you do this, and you use this form. What you put in that is up to you, but everything should look the same. I shouldn't have to look at a procedure for building and a procedure for conservation, and they look completely different. I can't find the same kind of information in the same spot ever.
That's why you need a flow chart.
That would even help. I need a
You need a flow
hieroglyphics explanation.
Yeah, we need your flow chart.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the time, let's continue on with this and try to get through this at least. More work on capacity specifications. Currently, as written, the bylaw has low efficacy as it does not address many of the core issues regarding stormwater management compliance. Again, not very good. And then for small lots with decreases in impervious area or minimal changes, the process is efficient. For complete teardowns and regrading of the site, not enough mitigation proposed. So that's efficacy. Purpose. The bylaw needs to specifically address flood mitigation. The existing purpose is to fulfill the requirements of NIPDES, and it should be expanded to also address issues of water capacity. Purpose seems clear, but could be better defined. It provides some stormwater protection, but should do much more. Mixed opinion, the purpose needs to be expanded. Are we good with all those? Okay. The last question on the survey was, does the current bylaw make your position easier, have no impact, or more difficult to perform your duties? Provide examples if possible. Because the bylaw does not address flood mitigation, building department staff spends a lot of time trying to assist homeowners who have experienced flooding.
Okay.
The omissions in the current bylaw and its weak post-construction enforcement result in the town not being able to address residents' concerns about flooding, accompanied by many understandable complaints to the select board as a result. Easier and helpful in requiring a proper recharge on site, including construction at greater than 4,000 impervious square feet, at greater than 25% or greater than 50% additions, and requirements at lower than 4,000, I would assume, square feet. As a resident of Needham, the current bylaw is not clear to the typical stakeholder. There are limited resources in stormwater compliance requirements.
You skipped
Oh, right, thank you. Limited resources for residents when selecting contractors to perform property or landscaping modifications who are knowledgeable in the stormwater compliance requirements and what activities are permitted by the bylaw. There are no means or mechanism to hold contractors accountable, and enforcement of prohibited activities is also unclear. Thank you. I read that earlier today, and I'm like, that didn't sound like what I read earlier today. It makes it more difficult to enforce due to its lack of clarity. The current bylaw is easy for most reviewers for most reviews for permits. And however, with the town's requirements for cleaner stormwater and mitigate stormwater capacity concerns, the bylaw does not have enough impact. That is the survey based on all of the responses, all put together. Discuss amongst yourselves. I'm going to stop sharing at the moment and then open discussion. Have at it.
I would suggest that we, based on this, take this on, each do a list of 8 or 10 most.
Topics.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I have a question. I think Josh submitted this. We had a huge issue with the fuel storage tank with the Conservation Commission. I won't even discuss it. Is this
new
construction? Is this being submitted because of a possible inclusion into the bylaw? Are we going to be including? Is this
So last meeting we discussed like how do we monitor?
For me, it makes sense.
How do we monitor?
Yeah.
The
underground
dry wells or other infrastructure that has been put in place during construction? Because over time, they could block or they could become less effective. And so this is the way the town tries to monitor the underground fuel tanks. Basically, it requires that every year the owner of the license, who's the owner of the house, has to submit some documentation to the town clerk. There's no teeth in it that says what happens if they don't, but it just says that they have to submit something. So we have a list to see who has and who has not submitted.
So it's like we have like an O&M plan requirement in our orders.
Yes.
But I think it's just, they have to have the information if we ask for it, kind of thing. So I doubt it's taken seriously.
Yeah, my question here is, has there ever been any stipulations on where these propane fuel tanks can be sited on the property and how close to the neighbor property line it can be? I know it has to be 10 feet from the house, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do the propanes.
Fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a fire safety issue.
So is there any restriction of how close, how far away it should be from a butter's property?
I think in the fire regulation, it just specifies a distance from a building. So whether it's the house and the property or the house next door, it's going to be that. And I believe it's just 10 feet. But I didn't want.
So that's under the fire. That's under
Yeah.
within the fire department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had to come inspect it.
They bring the teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I just know people are complaining with these propane
Just so
fuel
people
tanks
know,
again.
the building department only does, so once the tank is approved in the ground, the building department, the licensed plumber, yes, and it has to do the connection to the house, and that's what we do with this stuff. The hose, the connection, all of that. So not the tank itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it a proposal at all to include underground storage tanks? Because I know DEP does not consider these permeable structures.
They're not impervious because they're
don't
below the
consider-
surface.
Yeah,
The one,
because they're
the
underground.
specific one, it was an underground
Yeah.
propane tank.
Yeah, in underground, the DEP does not consider underground fuel tanks what am I trying to say?
Impervious.
Thank you. Yeah. So, but if you have a fuel tank underground, it's going to affect the drainage. I mean, I guess. Yes. I mean, don't you think the pattern of the drainage is going to
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So when how I think of it, I mean, I think of it as like this big impermeable block underground, but evidently.
DEP
How
doesn't
large
think.
Would you
these
include a
tanks are,
septic,
that-
a septic
The last one is what?
service too? Because wouldn't that be
Yeah,
the
good
same?
point.
Was that 6,000 gallons?
And infiltration unit, I mean, is that?
The one
Yeah,
that
if
we
you put in a
recently
dry
did
well,
1,000,
we have
yeah.
something underground.
Yeah,
You're affecting
yeah,
what happens underneath.
Children's
So-
is 6.
And it was just a question I had.
Hmm.
I'm really upset about these propane fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And I've had a personal issue along with, we've had a big problem with conservation with one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah.
But this mechanism, like, would this work for like dry wells and as a way for us to monitor
Oh,
things related
Yeah.
to stormwater? I mean, basically just a requirement that there be like a submission periodically.
Well, what's the license for? I mean, that's,
But it's not a license. I guess it's just an attestation that's still working.
yeah.
so is there always like
It's
an
called a
operation and
self-certification.
maintenance
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
plan that's required when
Um,
they install?
yeah, no, I think that's removed from the reserve.
So
Yeah,
if I can speak to this quickly again, self-certification is wonderful, it's fantastic, it's ideal, and I can't say enough about the process. It would be great. I am the only person who documents, databases, whatever, anything we receive. So the question becomes, if it's something you're required to put in based on your building this brand new beautiful home you have, and you need to put self-certify that it's still functioning the way it's supposed to. Number one, as a personal private property, I have zero authority to tell you you have to report anything to me, zero. Now, the suggestion has been to put it on the registry of deeds or something like that, similar to the way conservation's permit stuff goes or something, your conditions go. But I don't know if there's a cost to that. I don't know if there's a thing to that, because that would also mitigate some of the concerns we have or situations we've had where the house was built, the builder put in the stuff, did everything they were supposed to, that's great. Then the house gets sold and that person did or did not know about the stuff put in. And then it gets sold again. And then the next person probably doesn't know anything about whatever was there before. And it's not a selling feature for a realtor to bring up to you for any reason. So if it's on the registry of deeds, that would mean that they would have to be informed that something exists on the property. Number two, now that they're having to report on it, what propels them to do so? In comes the stormwater mitigation assessment type thing, and what we proposed or drafting and are working on is potentially having it be some sort of credit program. However, finance is of the opinion that if it was required as part of what you needed to do to build the house, it does not receive a credit right now, if it was required. If you do something over and above what is required, that could be eligible for credit. So again, you're stuck in the same position where if you don't get a credit because it was required anyway, are you going to report if you're not over and above what's required?
I'm sorry.
I was just asking if there's any value. So if you're in a situation where, not involving the registry, but if it's essentially voluntary, like everyone should submit a periodic self-assessment things. But there's no enforcement. If they don't, then basically you or someone else has a spreadsheet and you keep track of if it's received or not, and you keep track of if it's received, if it's working or not. That's all. And so like the benefit would just be basically to neighbors or potential home buyers to be able to look it up and to see.
Right. So we give that also self-certification or self-assessment or whatever on the back of the brochure you get when you put in a septic tank or when you have a septic tank on there.
Sure.
I have not met one resident in this town or any other town or my town or anything who actually uses that dang thing to record every time the septic is serviced, because it's always a, no pun intended, no shit moment when you're septic tank is now overflowing.
The people who do the operate, the people who get it pumped out are just like, oh, it's time for pump out, and they don't even go to the, I mean, they don't.
Correct.
But regulations require that, everything.
No,
They don't.
They don't
But-
require that.
But if we put it in something like a bylaw for stormwater and we require it,
Right.
what is our, if it's required, we have to have some sort of enforcement
I know,
mechanism.
I
So
know,
if they
I
don't
know.
report it,
I know.
other than losing their credit on a
Septic
stormwater
tanks.
fee,
No, not
which
septic.
if it's not
Just
over and above
stormwater.
your standard requirement, they're not
Probably-
getting a credit anyway, so I have really nothing that says you have to give me that information. I
some
have
of the
no way
town,
of doing that,
Yeah,
nor
no,
the
we
personnel
we
to.
have trouble with the monitoring for it, right, the yearly.
Yeah,
in the planning board requirements that we have submit an operation maintenance plan, that they're supposed to fill out. And going back over the last like 15 years or so, I'm looking at some of these O&M plans and just like, these are unattainable goals that the engineer decided that the property owner's gonna do. To have a quarterly maintenance of a stormwater system is like, really, do you think it's gonna happen?
How many people change the batteries in their smoke detectors?
Right.
No.
So, yeah, so seasonal, once a year, observation, these are the things that people typically see, and then, you know, yearly, you know, open up the tanks or when you notice there's a problem. But
Yeah.
to do it quarterly, then you're not gonna get people to comply.
Yeah, but I do think that, like, I think there's value in it, and I think if we put it in the bylaw that it has to be recorded with the registry of deeds, at least people know, it would make people more aware, because a lot of what would, even the comments that we made in public education, this would have an educational benefit. If we, you know, like, it's impossible to enforce, but if people buy a house and they don't know about it, they're not gonna do anything.
Correct.
If people buy a house and it's in the registry and the attorney says, hey, this is something you have to do if you buy this house. Well, they do it or not is one thing, but at least it's in the back of their mind. Some people will do it. Some people will.
well, those people that are buying that house are gonna wanna know if the people that moved out complied with it.
That's true too, yeah.
Right.
So eventually it will, it won't be perfect, but it will certainly be.
Yeah, it's like
I think it will be
lead
helpful.
compliance.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Well, so can I ask a question too, because I have no familiarity with the registry of deeds whatsoever. Number
Yeah.
one, is there a cost?
They're
to
very
do that?
nice there,
$75.
not so much.
It's $75 to
Yeah,
add
to
something
record the
to
document.
record it. And does that recording of it, if the potential home buyer finds out that previous owner did not maintain it,
Mhm.
what does that mean for them? What does that do? Anything?
I think what we recorded was his original O&M, this is what the
Yeah,
property owner has to
what you,
do. And they wouldn't keep recording, they would have to keep record of. You know,
So produce your
if I was
record,
buying
or
a
we're not
house
gonna buy
and
your
I-
house, or you're gonna have to put money in escrow
Yeah,
so
then,
that
yeah,
we
fine,
can
I'm sure.
make sure
Yeah.
that it's been maintained, or you're gonna pay for it.
yeah, exactly. All you gotta, you know, if I'm buying a house and I see that this owner hasn't, the previous owner hasn't maintained it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, hey, before I give you the money, make sure the
Mhm.
system's operating. Show me that you had somebody in, clean it out, whatever is required. You know, most of these tanks that are put on the ground, they have observation points in them.
Mhm.
So, it's easy enough to look and see. The more complicated one is if we allow dry wells, you know, just a pile of crushed stone. Those,
Or the stone, yeah.
those are more difficult to maintain.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything
No.
against what you're suggesting, I'm just giving you all the different pieces to it.
Yeah.
And then the whole database record keeping, how somebody
But-
submits it, where they submit it, when is.
Conservation gets recorded with the registry, Board of Appeals gets recorded with the registry, planning board decisions get recorded with the registry. It often, well, like in a subdivision, for example, like Bell Lane.
Yep.
So the recorded document is under Bell Lane,
Mhm.
but it's not recorded with each of the homeowners' deeds. So the homeowners probably, now that it's changed several times, aren't aware of that original operation and maintenance plan.
Yeah.
That's some of the problem with it, but. I might be going off track.
No, very good information, because I don't deal with the registry of deeds at all, so I don't know what it would do or not do. But one of the biggest hurdles we've had is that, you know, if you have a home that was built 50 years ago, that home may or may not have been changed hands about 12 times since the beginning of its inception. So I know what the builder put in 50 years ago.
But the fix is not that difficult if it hasn't been maintained. Typically, it's not that difficult. Clean it up, maintain it.
But you're right, homeowners, I mean, it'd be great information. Right now, presently in this home sale, they waive the inspection. People don't even know what their burners are, right? So they buy
They
something.
waive an inspection.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it'd be amazing
And
that they
cash
actually
up front,
can see
probably.
now what is underground.
So the registry of deeds is a means of enforcement, really. I mean, it's probably a basic means of
Well, it's a means
enforcement.
of recording information.
Yeah, in education.
Like, I mean, right now, if you want to get information, you have to go to the building department, the engineering department, the fire department,
conservation.
conservation. Yeah, you have to go to all these separate departments, make separate requests, and you're not even always sure what you're asking for. Like,
But if it's recorded with the registry of deeds, it's for sure, the truth is there.
And the question
So-
is, what happens if and when that unit or whatever is removed? Not that you normally would, but I'm just saying, what happens if somebody comes in and says, hey, I put on an addition, whatever was there is no longer adequate. I took that out and I put something else. All right, and presumably you put something else in, but what if you didn't? You just took it out. Does that get recorded with the registry too?
The owner can record, you know, because it's not like an order of conditions where the Conservation Commission really holds that condition. They're just recording a notice, a deed notice. You know what I'm saying? It's not a condition, it's a deed notice that this property has an infiltration system that's serving for discharge of stormwater.
Right, but my point is if they took something out or they removed something.
So then they would add another, they could add another to their deed.
But is
Yeah,
it
so
really
they
a
would-
benefit to them?
Would that be another building permit?
Yeah,
That would.
presumably, if
Well,
we
you
get, if
can
we get the
record anything.
bylaw right, it will be captured in the next, in the addition.
Because my question is, if I'm buying a house and it says, oh, it has an infiltration thing, yep, we've maintained it, done whatever, but lo and behold, whatever happened, they removed it.
Oh, that'll be a rare occurrence.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, every
I-
rare occurrence you think will never happen is the one I get an email about.
Yeah. Oh, no, I thought you were talking about like they demoed the whole property and redid it. And so, you know, then they would remove it intentionally, put it someplace else, but.
Because they have to put more house there.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
That's,
It's
I mean, my
also-
thought is like, once it's there, but then
They'll
what
record
happens if somebody says, oh, I thought I bought a house that had infiltration, now I have to put it in.
well, then we just have to think about what triggers filing.
Which one is what?
What filing, if it's at the registry, what triggers that?
Right.
And you also, I'm
Just to keep in
amazed,
mind,
yeah.
like on a property
Let's get
that's
front
gone
seat.
through a few hands, how some lawyers and deed researchers seem to find everything and some miss the most obvious. You know, so we'll have an open order that will go through several owners and then suddenly someone's lawyer will say, oh, wait a minute. You know, and then you're going back to a couple owners to say, well, they were supposed to do this and they were supposed to do that. That didn't happen. So it seems like there's also that kind of factoring in whether it's discovered or not.
But ultimately,
Yeah.
it's a good thing, if someone eventually finds it, people aren't doing stuff, and okay, so it's 3
Yeah.
years down the road, but it does get found, it does get corrected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna send that third owner over to you when they say, hey, I'm not paying if Joe Smith over there didn't do his job 60 years ago.
So we see it all the time with new construction, like I come down here, we talk to the building department, make sure the permits are closed, we go to the fire department, make sure that there's no evidence of past buried tanks, all that kind of thing.
And you go to conservation.
I walk in, and we just say, hey, tell us about the neighborhood, because I would say, you know, you're buying a $2 million house. Let's go down to the town hall, and we just talk about, you know, planning board has any new proposals coming up, you know, they're building a group home or something in the neighborhood, because we are liable as the realtor if we're not doing our due diligence. So it's a big deal.
I don't know what time you guys are planning on ending.
Yes.
My 15-year-old son's hanging out with his friends at Legacy.
Oh my God, yeah,
So
To go.
I'm just like,
We did
where are
start a
you?
little
The
late
stores
for
are
something, yeah.
closing. What are you doing?
yeah. All right, do you wanna carve these up in like first list, do you guys?
So
Okay.
in the, okay, so let me sum up. So in the SharePoint site,
Yeah.
I have uploaded this summary that you received this evening. I uploaded the regulation things that Josh so kindly provided as a point of reference for potential in our discussions. And I have also uploaded into the, what did I say? I think I put it in the deliverables folder, the first draft of John's summary of what he thinks the main issues are currently. Keeping in mind that was before tonight's meeting and before the updated summary of survey that we went over this evening. So that was his first flush at getting something out there and looking at the things we want to focus on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
So if we could, if by we again, I mean you, if you could look at that document and kind of make any comments or thoughts to them. Tom has it up on the screen. If you have any comments or thoughts about those general items that we want to kind of address or tackle, add to based on what is in the survey response, maybe if you see something in there that is not covered, and maybe come or either give me the information or come to the next meeting with the information, and then we can discuss having sort of an outline plan of what we want to tackle, so that starting in the next meeting, my thought would be it's your kind of planning session as to what you're going to recommend as deliverables to the select board. So you're not going to come up with a document the next time, but you're coming up with your sort of outline process.
So is the next time really next week?
The next time is the 3rd, yes.
Election day.
Okay.
Should we change that?
Right. No, I just,
I won't be here. I won't be here. I
Oh,
mean, that's Labor Day weekend. So I don't know whether that.
it is Labor Day weekend, yes.
Okay.
Also on the 16th, which I think is the
Next one.
We are
is-
not meeting on the 16th.
no.
We're meeting on the 17th.
Mhm.
We meet on the
I
17th.
will wait the 16th to the 24th.
Well, lock it up.
Yeah, really.
I may
You
not
can
be here
zoom
one week
in. We don't
October.
mind. You can zoom in.
No one did that on Long Island.
Yeah, so I'm so excited.
So do we want to discuss skipping the next meeting, or are we discussing moving it? This one got moved out a week because you guys had a select board conflict.
The 10th work?
The select board meeting on the 10th.
Yeah, so the weeks we have currently would do it. So to me, it's either you're skipping it or.
Can we do another day the week of the 10th? Another day of the week?
That we could try, but that was. I think
The days were
weird
kind of
commitments,
difficult. Yeah, the days were difficult because of the meeting things or committees, other committees.
Because the 17th would be what, how many weeks from now?
September 17th is technically 3 weeks from now.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this one was a 3 week between. We could do another 3 week between just because we happened to hit up against a conflict with the select.
Since we
board.
got so much done tonight.
Yeah.
Good meeting.
And hopefully next time we won't have so many technical difficulties.
Right.
And
All right,
thanks to what
that's
John
fine.
did.
Next,
Exactly, and John already did half the work next time.
right, and we're just looking to vote on the 3rd, want to postpone, cancel the meeting on the 3rd.
So let's cancel the meeting on the 3rd. I will update the website or the SharePoint site with that information. So, and I will have. Well, can you share with Town Hall Miles or Louise or whoever needs to let them know that the September 3rd meeting is canceled?
Yeah.
We are no longer meeting on the 3rd. The next meeting will be on September 17th.
Okay, again, I'll be away for that, but I'll get my comments in certainly.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and you all remember to vote on the 3rd.
Mm,
Mhm.
It's just-
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So we'll all commit to getting you a list.
They will.
You can either get me a list and change the list that's here, or if you bring it with you to the next meeting, that's up to you. If you want it to be shared with other people in the meeting and be prepared for the meeting.
Maybe send out a reminder next week. to remind me what I'm supposed to be doing for the next meeting.
Yes, dear.
I'll let you know, Deb, too.
Thank you.
There's kind of two lists. There's a list that I did, which is summarizing what are the issues and problems, which is, we've got all the raw material, it's a matter of boiling it down.
Yeah.
Then there's Josh's list that he started, which is sort of taken to that next step about what are the specific changes that we're gonna be
Yeah, so I
having
would
to
like
make to
us to
address those problems.
Yeah, I would like us to focus on this list of whatever our focused issues
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
hand, just so we are more focused about what we're doing. as
And
much
if we
as
can all agree, then.
So
that'll-
under deliverables, Tom has it up, under deliverables is a separate Word document there. It is summary of stormwater bylaw. That document there is what you're looking to update or to expand on based on our discussions today. In addition to that list that's there, I'd like to have the same list, like, so have page 2 be the regulations. So one might be a focus for the bylaw, but one is a focus for regulations. And then next time we meet, we can discuss if it's appropriate for something to be in the bylaw versus regulations, because some things can be a little wishy-washy, which is how we ended up with the document we have now with a somewhat bylaw regulation.
Well, we haven't
mishmash.
even talked about the regulation.
We haven't. Well, we've talked about it in pieces, like things that have been brought up as issues. So I think it would just be good to clarify what we see as an issue should be addressed in which document type
I
thing.
kind of kept it in my nice little orange folder.
Oh, I'm so glad you kept
like
the
my-
folder.
I like
Yeah.
my own
Yes,
folder.
unscathed.
Elisa made me my own folder. So I put that inside of our folder.
Nice.
So very, very organized.
I
So
believe
very
we're
organized.
good, unless anybody has any other comments, questions, concerns, or discussions. Somehow, we will still have to send an email to the whole group stating, confirming that the 3rd is canceled, because Tripp and Janine may not know.
I think we need to start bringing snacks.
Okay.
I did bring a snack.
Do know.
I brought a whole dinner.
No, I mean for everyone,
Oh.
not just for yourself.
Okay. I tried to remember, hey, I brought honey for you one time.
Well, obviously, I'm not putting it
Oh,
down,
okay.
but I'm just saying maybe next time I'll bring a surprise.
I'll bring a snack.
We'll have a
I'm
snack.
saying.
Let's make it
She's gonna
fun.
think. Okay, so motion to adjourn by Tom, who seconds it? Everybody? Yeah.
All in
Second, but
favor?
I'll give John the second.
All right.
He tied with Sue last time.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, Captain.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
you.
everybody. Anybody who
Thank
stayed
you.
tuned, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.